Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are here live at the African Leadership Group office. And you are joining us for a series of conversations we will be having today about mental health. And as you know, my name is Papa Jah, founder and executive director of the African Leadership Group. And today we are having the series of conversations around mental health part 2. And part 1, we had here last week the children, and there was the youth conversation on gun violence and mental health. If you haven't had a chance to tune in on our Facebook or YouTube, please, there was some very interesting conversation that we had with the kids. Children to bring the parents, right? And today we are joined with parents here, and this conversation is conversation with parents on gun violence and mental health. And that's part 2. But let me just give you a preview what part 3 will be. Part 3 will be breaking the stigma of mental health. And this is we'll be having expert in this that's going to be having the conversation. And part 4, so this is where we'll be copying skills and resources for youth and parents. How can we get help? So thanks for tuning in to joining us for this very, very, very important. Now, as we know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and our Health and Wellness Committee is putting together this series of conversation to build awareness and education about key health issues and, most importantly, preventive measures. This part 2 conversation, as I mentioned, is with this amazing parent that you will get to hear from. But as I mentioned, for part 1, we have it on Facebook, right? But today, I am joined by the chairman of the Health and Wellness Committee that really, his group has done an amazing job putting together this conversation. So Abdul Pesima, I cannot thank you enough for all the work that your committee under your leadership is doing to really educate the community on various topics of health, especially mental health, and we are honoring Mental Health Month, which is May. So I would like to turn it over to you so you can tell us a little bit about your committee. What else do you have planned for this community, and what should we look forward to?
Thank you very much, Papa. Hello, my name is Abdul Pesima, chairman of the Health and Wellness Committee. I would like to recognize and give a shout out to our amazing African Leadership Group Health and Wellness Committee members. Anatwa Kofi, Pascal Adu, Jusu Sawi, Medanet Galou, Elizabeth Munoz, Vera Gariisin, and Suzanne Levain. Thank you all for the community service and work you do for the ALG Health and Wellness programs and events. We appreciate you very, very much. Health and wellness is to help improve greater health and well-being within the African diaspora communities by facilitating greater access to critical services and quality care through advocacy and strategic partnership, as well as building awareness and education among the community members about key health issues and preventive measures. Thank you for tuning in. Now I would like to turn it over to Papa.
Thank you so much, Abdul. And also I want to express my gratitude to all the amazing committee members that are serving on the Health and Wellness Committee. And there's more coming. We are getting ready for the health fair, Abdul, that your team is putting together in November, where we can have more information and resources about health. But I'm joined by these amazing parents that's going to be introducing themselves, and we can dive deep into the conversation. But we'll start with Patricia. Patricia, if you can take 30 seconds and introduce yourself to the community, and why are you here to participate in this conversation?
Thank you so much, Papa. Good evening, everyone. My name is Patricia Laoluwa. I'm from Nigeria, and I'm a parent to 4 wonderful kids who are in Denver Public School. My reason for being here this evening is to join this wonderful panelists so we can talk about this all-important topic that we know we cannot do without. Mental health is one of the problems that has been plaguing our society, and I'm very happy that I'm here tonight to be able to be part of this so that we can see how we can fashion out maybe a solution or part of the solution to this problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So I'll turn it to my Nahom, please. A quick introduction and why are you here?
Hi, my name is Nahom Hagos, and I'm from Ethiopia, the Tigray region. I have a parent, child, and as well as multiple adopted kids. I am here to be a part of the committee. Like you say, Papa, if you're not on the you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and definitely want to be on the at the table.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. And Olasegun, please.
Yeah, my name is Olusegun Olaoluwa. It's a great pleasure to be here. Not just being here to be part of this discourse. And if you're part of the nation today, you know mental health is on the highest burner. Gun violence everywhere, different kind of violence. And when you look deep into it, it's a mental issue. And if we're able to give one or two advices, that would be helpful. So I'd really like to be part of the solution. Thank you for calling me here.
Now, you've heard it, and I hope you are sitting comfortably on wherever you are to really dive, because I think if there's any issue that we want to address in our community, it's always important to hear from those people that are impacted, right? So for the longest time, usually in our community, we have the expert that will come and pretty much lecture us without taking the time to ask us how we're feeling, how we're dealing with this, what does it mean, do we understand? So this is a time where you will get all the information you need, especially when it comes to the African immigrant community. How are we coping with this issue and how we're dealing with it, and how you might be involved to help in this journey. But before we dive deep into the conversation, if you've been part of the African Leadership Group, you know we are a community-driven organization where our main focus is to uplift and empower each other. And one way we do that is to support the small businesses we have in our community. And we have one of our business owners that are sponsoring this event called Effie with Gifted Hand. And those beautiful balloons that you see around us for decoration, that's what she put together. If you are having a high school celebration, graduation, if you're having a wedding, if you have a church, if you have a birthday celebration, please make sure you reach out to Effie, because we want to make sure that we keep the dollar in our community. The more we empower each other, the more we empower our community, the more successful we are. So you can reach Effie at 720-260-8541. She makes sure that I put her business phone. Papa, I'm a businesswoman. Don't just put, I have a business number, right? That's 720-260-8541. Effie, we are so grateful and we are extremely proud of you, and we hope that our viewers will reach out to you to support you and support themselves. So thank you. Now let's dive deep into it. So I want to let you know there are going to be 4 categories of question. One of them will be social media bullying question. The other one will be generational conflict. Generational conflict, that's an interesting one. And another one will be trauma. And the last one will be gun violence question. So there are the 4 categories of question. You know what's interesting about this? All these questions that we collected came from the community. So this is not something Abdul put together, or this is not something that I put together. The community wanted to hear from you guys when it comes to this question. So the first one I have, and I'll start with you, Patricia. What springs to your mind when you hear the word cyberbullying? What comes into your mind when you hear the word cyberbullying?
Thank you, Papa. So when I hear the word cyberbullying, it brings to mind bullying on the social media.
Okay.
And I want to bring it down to my kids. I have a 17, 15, 13 and 12-year-old kids, and I always tell them, if you don't know whoever is on the other side that is trying to connect with you, please shut it down or block such people. Whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Instagram, because a lot of times this is where these people use social media to hide themselves. And then, because they are innocent, they don't know what is really happening around the world. And so from there, innocently, they get bullied. And if we as parents, if we are not really close or connected to these children, a lot of things happen in their lives, especially as it relates to social media. So that's where they get bullying, they get all sorts of things, and these things are what leads most times to mental health, because they were being bullied on social media. So I don't know if.
So Nahum, let me thank you so much, because for most of us, when we hear cyberbullying, we don't even know what cyberbullying means, right? But thank you for tying it to social media, because as immigrants, and especially parents, right? Maybe we learned to engage in social media just recently, right? And all these things are totally new. So now my follow-up question to you is, how can someone be bullied on the cyberspace? How does it happen?
Oh man, for any reason, people out there are attacking other, kids through their pictures, their comments, their gender, and so many other aspects in that person's life. And they don't just single them out, it's for a particular reason. And that's pretty much it on that.
Yeah. So, and now I want to come to you and ask you, as a parent, at what age do we feel as parent our kids should have access to social media? If so, which one do you think it would be safe to start with?
Wow, thank you. That question is loaded. And that question is like, even in the house, it brings a lot of debates. The kids want to get in as early as possible. Parents we don't feel secured because you're never there. They are in the corner of the rooms doing something. One, you cannot vouch for what they're doing online. They are so technically savvy that you don't even know where they are going or where they're coming from. So now, what is the age? I think it depends a lot of things on what you want them to do on the social media. There are some social media areas you don't want them to go, whatever their age. So that's the thing. So there are age-appropriate social media sites, educational side. If you talk about that, I'll say as early as possible. But when you begin to talk of, I don't want to mention them, but those ID-charged ones. I don't want them until they can make informed decisions. So when you say at what age, it depends on the kid. They grow at different levels. They have comprehension at different levels, appreciation of danger and stuff at different levels. So I think it is important we study our kids. We should know them. We should get close to them. This one is very smart in this aspect of life. If you give him an inch, it's going to take a mile. Yes. So it's better I don't even give him an inch. So I think it's not a straightforward thing. It's a debate. I'll tell you something. In my church, we were talking about it on Sunday. And my pastor was saying he doesn't think any child below the age of 13 should have access to social media. But I'll say it's debatable. There are educational sites. So do you want to exclude him also from that? So we have to really look at it very well.
Yes, now go ahead.
Can I interject? I think also, off your statement, I feel like it has to do more with the parenting as well, because, with the information that we feed our kids are the results of what we put down, So while we're putting these restrictions and referencing to, the aspect of the social media, what sites they can see, limitations to that aspect, I feel like it's also the parents' responsibility, definitely.
We need to know and be informed.
Yes.
Because if you don't know anything about social media, your kids will blindside you. They know more than you do, really. Let's take that as a fact. The Generation X, I think that's what they call them. You can't beat them. I can't beat my son. He knows the cell phone more than I do. I call him to assist me do one or two things. So he's able to hide whatever he wants to hide. But the most important thing as a parent, make them feel at home with you. What you don't know, you ask.
Well, this is great. Let me bring in Miss Velver, and thank you for joining us. And so you're working at the perfect time. We were talking about the section of generational conflict, and the question I had was, at what age do you think it's appropriate to have our children, to have them have access to social media? If so, which one?
If it was up to me, I would say no age. However, kids are being exposed at the age of 1 and 2 to social media. And so that is the environment that they're living in. Unfortunately, there's really nothing we can really do to prepare them, because once they're out of your hands, they're into somebody else's hands. So when they're going to school, they're forced to be on the computer. They're forced to engage these different websites. So they're going to be exposed to things that you cannot even speak of or protect them from. And then the laws that have been put in place to protect them and their rights on social media. So there's so many different challenges that raising children here in America that you face. I'm not going to say it's a losing battle, but it makes parenting a little bit challenging.
Absolutely.
Guys, I have about 100 questions here, and I want us, because we start talking about cyberbullying, we start talking about social media, and before I transition to the other section of the conversation, I want us to pause. And now, when it comes to cyberbullying, when it comes to social media, what do we do now? What do we do? What is next?
I say communication, and you have to start somewhere. You know, understand it and understand what you're getting yourself into, and then also bring that up to them. I mean, at one point they're gonna come to this factor on their own, but at least if you're able to structure it, at least you'll have a better structure, I guess you say, with your child. To be honest.
Yeah, well, if you ask me, I think it's about time we no longer live in denial. We need to accept social media is there. We should accept there are good sides. We should also accept there is the other side. We should engage our kids in conversation. You can bully them. That's what is happening. Some parents are bullying their kids, but it backfires. If they cannot talk to you, someone outside will talk to them. Mm-hmm. If you take away their cell phones, they will use their friend's cell phone. Mm-hmm. How many hours do we spend with them at home? Most of the hours they are in school, and they are friends. So we need to engage our kids in positive conversation, in conducive atmosphere. If you want to be a tyrant, you're going to lose them. Social media is here to stay. There's nothing we can do about it.
So, and I want to ask this follow-up question, because as people of color and African immigrant, we came from a background where we were taught just to tough it up, right? So just tough it up. Don't let these things bother you. People always gonna say things. That's how we were raised, right? But in this new environment, what parents can do? First of all, how can we identify this is cyberbullying, and how can we educate? How can we equip ourselves to identify this is cyberbullying and we need to do something about it? Or do we even know what it looks like as a parent? Can we talk about some example of cyberbullying and maybe how should we deal with it? Anybody?
Yeah, my son had that issue. TikTok. So the youth nowadays, they were at school, a fight broke out, and everybody pulls out their cell phone. And so the kids now, it's trending when you can pass a fight to another kid. Well, they have passed a law. If you spread the fight... So
you're telling me the kids passed the law?
No, they passed a law that this is considered bullying. If I record the fight and then I send it to someone else, I then can be charged with the crime. And so my son was involved in a situation where they were all in a group, and the fight broke out, and everyone took out their phones, and he recorded a portion of that fight. Okay? And so once he recorded it, I guess the kids, I don't know how kids start talking stuff through Snapchat. And my son, because he was just extra, he decides to make fun of the fight on Snapchat. The kids involved got upset. Then they started targeting him through social media in Snapchat. So I took his phone, I went through it, I went to the principal because I wanted everyone to be aware because I don't want him getting charged with anything. This is what's going on. I see that there are threats being made against my kid. We need to deal with this. So the principal called each and every parent into a meeting that was involved in the whole situation, and we had a conversation. What are we to do at this point when it gets to this point? How do we handle these kids from spreading this? And then the police were actually involved. So the police had to come in and educate them that this is against the law. You keep spreading this and you too will be charged with a crime. So me as a parent, I had to take his phone and do phone checks. And then I had to question, what is this? Why are you doing this? If you do this, and I had to do my own research. So it's not me just taking his word because, you know, kids nowadays, they will tell you whatever they want you to hear. I had to go and research. And then I had to talk to the schools. Is this safe for my son to do? What is not okay? Because at the end result, any pictures or anything being spreaded on social media can be held against your child.
So we are all in trouble. I don't have Snapchat. We as parents, we don't know how to navigate this tool. And I can give you an example. I have 3 daughters, and yes, and you like to think like, oh, my kids are perfect. Right?
They're saints.
They sense and they're perfect. But you realize also, you know, when they step out of the house, they have to be this total different person, and they have to engage in whatever that's happening in school. And my daughter get caught up into this group conversation, and this been going on. All of a sudden, I get a phone call from the principal that I need to show up to, and I said, "No, this is not my daughter. No."
Yeah.
And I had to go and try to get educated what Snapchat is, what's happening. So the next question, and we'll transition then, what do we do as parents? Do we have to go and learn about this social media and know everything and download it?
We don't have any choice.
We have to?
We have to.
You do.
When you learn about it, you know the secrets, you know the advantages and disadvantages. You are able to talk to them. Unless you talk to them. And the language they would understand.
Yes.
Not the African. You were saying something about the African. You need to. No.
It doesn't work.
These kids are different now.
Yeah.
It won't work. It won't work.
Well, if you just tune in now, you join the African Leadership Group Health and Wellness Committee, where we are having the conversation on mental health, celebrating the month of May as Mental Health Month. I am joined here by 4 different parents with different background, and we just spend a lot of time talking about social media and bullying, and a lot of things we are learning. One of the main things that I'm taking away as a parent, I have to learn about all this platform. And you are never too old, I guess, to learn about Snapchat.
No.
So everybody's telling us no. So now let's transition to generational conflict. So let's start with each of us, if we can identify which generation we are from. And you said it, the kids, we call them Gen X.
Well, I would say I'm old school generation. I think that settles mine.
No, and we have our producer, Professor Majama. He's a baby boomer. He was born during the First World War or something like that. Yeah, the 1940s. That's our producer. So, yeah, let's talk about generational conflict. So, and I'll start with you, Nahum. What do you think generational conflict is?
Oh, man, it could be a lot. To me, currently, like something that's been bothering me right now is like in reference to generational conflict is in reference how do we bridge that the African American and diaspora, but the whole African, the content, the whole capital itself, country itself, with the African brothers and sisters that we have from here. Because I don't know if you've read an article, they say in the next 5 to 10 years, you know, for the African American, or I guess blacks and minorities here, and that there's going to be a shift to where here in America, what we've been, the African American, I guess, has been free for over 400 plus years without no advancement. So if we're going to be on the bottom totem pole, how can we advance to combat that? In reference to generational conflict is something that I've been trying to deal with right now. So that's a big one, I feel.
So Patricia, let me come to you. No, that's very good. What are the effect, the negative impact of generational conflict? What and how do you deal with it? Do you deal with it with your kids, where you feel like, you know, they come from this generation, I come from, so there's a conflict?
Thank you very much, Papa. That's in my home, actually, it's been happening a lot. You know, back home in Africa, when our parents are talking, you can't talk back at your parents.
Oh, this is the real mother African talking.
Yeah, you cannot talk back. You can't reply. For instance, I can't reply my dad when he's talking. If not, I will get a dirty slap. Or he tells you to do something and he tells you do it right now, and hours later you have not done that thing. You are in hot soup. But what do we have here? Last night, my daughter came back from school, went for a sports program, came back around 6, and when she was done eating, she's like, Mom, at 7 o'clock, Mom, I'm so tired, I need to go and sleep. She was supposed to do the dishes, and really, she sat down. We were supposed to have a Bible study group on Zoom. And she sat down there sleeping. I'm like, go and sleep in the room. And she slept till this morning. But back in my generation, woe betide you if you come back from school. Even before you eat, you must do your chores. After eating, you have your chores to do. So, but you know, we are two separate generations now. I can't. When I was telling my husband about it, my husband is like, "Oh, why didn't you let her go to sleep?"
No. Actually, let's show the brother here. No. You should show me the brother here. Show me the brother here.
Oh,
so you said this man?
Yeah, it was like. So in fact, I want to think because coming to America has really changed my husband. My husband used to be the...
Patricia, don't make the show about the brother now.
No, my husband used to be the typical African parent. But you know, because of so many things...
I take it from my mouth. you know what? The earlier you realize something, the better for you. Very quick, I realized that I am not in the same situation I was in Africa. I realized I don't want to lose these kids. I want an open door for them to come to me. And the best way for me to do that is to allow them relax and stuff like that. And we both are beneficiaries of that. If you don't take care, or you don't realize the conflict, if you don't address it, it's going to lead to hostility. It's going to lead to separation. And you're going to lose this generation. Yeah, she said, I'm like the conk African man. Yeah, my situation then. But coming here, you realize my kids of this age here, compared to their age mate in Africa, they are not the same. You can't adopt the same approach. Even my kids call me, Daddy, you have changed. In those days, you can't take this. I say, yeah, I have to change. You are not the same as well. They are not the same. Why should I remain the same?
Now, let me tell you, that's a wise man talking right there. So, and I will transition to that, but I want to come to you, Velva. Now, as an African American woman, you hear the perspective from two parents from the motherland. Is it the same? Is it different growing up? How was it for you? And compared to now, how is it for your kids?
It was the same. Like, discipline was the wrought iron that my mom because my dad didn't really do the discipline. He had 2 girls, so it was my mom. And so like she said, when you did something, if you didn't do it, oh, you would have got whooped. Okay, we call it whoopings. You got beat. And so now you cannot touch your child. No. And so that is the difference, because laws have drastically changed. I remember growing up in the 80s in schools, teachers were able to discipline you. They was able to smack your hand with a ruler. Well, they took that out. And so now kids feel like they have the power to confront teachers. They don't have a fear of parents and the parents' authority. So we're battling something that's a bit challenging. You can try to be the best parent in your home you want to be, but the overall picture is that your children are being raised by what they see on TV, what they're being told in the schools, and what society says. They have rules. They have their own voice. They have their own understanding, and you really can't cultivate that. So I think our society has taken away the right to parent, and they have allowed them to be the parent to the children. And so that is a challenge. I felt the sting with raising my kids, and a lot of times I'm like, I don't want that fight. So go to bed. I'll deal with it. And I think that's a lot of the parent situations, because you don't want the kid. You're tired of the attitude. You're tired. I can choke my son out, but where's that going to get me? I'll call the cops. That's their mentality. Like, they have a way out. They'll either call 911 on you, or they'll go to the school. There's ways that the teachers and the system has implemented where if you feel like you are being threatened by your parent, come to us. And they have taught that the society of which I was raised, they considered it abuse, right? Discipline back in the day is now considered abuse, child abuse. So they tell the kids, if your parent were to lay a hand on you and leave a mark, or if they're very harsh with their words and they make you feel like you're less than, that's abuse. You need to report it. So for me, I think I'm glad I got 1 more year out of high school and I'm done. But I'm just like, the challenges of raising kids in America, it's pretty challenging. It is tough.
Can I add something
Yes,
to
yes,
that?
please.
You know, maybe because of what I do now. I work as a caregiver with people with developmental disabilities. There's something called the person-centered approach. It's going to help, no matter the generation. This is my kid. I have 4 of them. I take them as individual persons. So you take a person as a person. They have rights. There are expectations. You are not to impose your rights on them. You give them options. You teach them the options. Essentially, the decision is theirs. That is what is going around now in that field. Person-centered approach. 2 kids are never the same, no matter how they look. As parents, I know my kids. I know his strong point. I know his weaknesses. If he says yes and it means no, I know. So take your child as a person. Study that kid. If you know him well, accord him his rights, know his duties and responsibilities, you're going to get the best out of him.
So now, there's a couple of things that you said, Velver. One of them was, I'm tired, I don't have the fight, just go to bed. Is it common across the board from all parents now?
No scolding. Come again?
Because part of what she was saying, sometimes she's just tired of it. She doesn't want to fight. She doesn't want to battle with the kids. And she's like, I'll deal with it, but I'm tired, go to bed. So we just kind of give up, give in, whatever we want to call it. Is it something common to all parents now?
At a point, it happens. You know, you do all you can, every approach you think. At a point, it's important you just stop. Otherwise, you go beyond the boundary. Just stop at that point. A cooling time. A time of thinking about all over again. By the time you do that, you let it cool off. Other approaches might come. But if you push it and keep pushing it, you're going to reach a breaking point.
I want to bring an instance about what he's saying. So one of our kids, I don't want to say he doesn't like doing his homework, but he always ends up not doing his homework on time, not submitting his homework on time. And by the time we find out, usually it's pretty late, and why didn't you do your homework? Oh, I don't know how to do it. And so what did you do? You just kept quiet. You couldn't reach out to us. You couldn't reach out to your teacher. You couldn't reach out to people. And he would just be like looking. And this, it's always a repetitive thing in the house. And so one time he'd like, you know what? I'm fed up. I'm not going to ask him anything again. I'm like, if you keep quiet and not say anything, he will take it as a green card for him to do whatever he likes. Yeah, that is, you are tired. Yeah, you don't want to say anything. Okay, leave him to me. I now,
You'll take over.
I took over. And at a point when I get tired, he will take over.
It's like there's a tactic put together. Uzi, I have to advocate for the kids here. We cannot let this parent just go after the kids. So here is my follow-up question. We all know sometimes it's good to learn from your own mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. So as a parent, when do you allow your children to do something knowing that they're going to make a mistake and be okay with it and let them learn from it? Is there such a thing?
There is.
There's a limit. Yeah.
Tell me more, Velvet. Tell me more.
I know. I got a boy and a girl, so best of both worlds. My son, of course, he turns 18. I pushed him to graduate. He graduated with honors, and he had plans to go to college. That was my plan for him, and I thought that was his plan. But of course, this generation and him meeting a young lady kind of gave him a different direction to his life. So after he graduates, he decides to go and venture off with this young lady instead of pursuing college. So me as a mother, having to just process what this young man just did, and I had to get help, you guys. I had to speak to other men, because women, we don't think the same, and I wasn't thinking on this level. So I had to hear it from men and their perspective of what they did at this age, and it kind of gave me peace about letting him make this decision. It's a hard decision, and I try to tell him, you're going to learn, but right now he can't see it. He's like, yeah, I'm grown, I can make my own decisions. I said, but it's going to cost you. And having to express to him what it looks like, but this generation can't really see it until they feel it. So having to release that was the challenge. Once I prayed and fasted and did everything else, God just basically said, let him go, because I'm in control of his life. And as parents, we have to understand they are not ours to keep, they're just ours to raise. Once we've done our part, we need to release them to what God has predestined for them to do. So that is my process. I don't fight his decisions. I said, at the end of the day, you're the one that's responsible. I'm no longer responsible. You're responsible. And I hope you understand the magnitude of responsibility that you have placed on your plate, and understand that your decisions will change your future. And so we have these conversations. I don't know if it's clicking right now. From what I was told, it's probably not going to click until he's 21 or even 35, but we can only hope and pray. Right?
We hope and pray. And we will transition here and talk about gun violence now, right? But before we do that, then is it fair from everything that we hear to say it doesn't matter where you are as a parent or how you feel about your kid, there's always the situation of generational conflict? Is it fair? Is it a fair assessment? Yes. To know that we are all dealing with it?
It's all going to be there. You can't remove it. It's there.
Yes.
All right. So when we get to the closing remark, they will have some advice for all of you guys. We just finished wrapping up the conversation on social media bullying. We just finished talking about generational conflict. Now we were talking about the hot topic of the, do we call it the hot topic of the century? Gun violence. What are your thoughts on it, Patricia, when you hear the word gun violence? What are your thoughts?
Thank you so much, Papa. Not until I got to the U.S. Did I start hearing about people having license to carry guns. back home, it's only for the law enforcement.
Hunters.
Yes, that they are the ones that are allowed to carry guns. But right now in our society, especially in the U.S., it's crazy. It's so crazy. So for me, I think people should be restricted carrying guns. There should be some form of restrictions to a large extent about people carrying guns. But a lot of people don't see it that way. And I think that is why we have everything that we have going on in our society today.
So, Vilva, I'm going to turn over to you for the same question, but also can you add on what are you thinking about the recent gun shooting in this country at the school?
Well, unfortunately, being born and raised here, this has always been something of a normal. So this is nothing new to me. It just has gotten to the point where it's now being made aware because there's more massive killings. But gun violence has always been a part, especially born and raised in Colorado, East Denver, in the black neighborhoods, has always been a part of the struggle when it came to African Americans. And so looking at the recent school shootings, I don't think that they can stop what's happening because the guns are already out there and they're steady more selling them at massive rates. I think now, I don't know if there's a fix for this, but I think now they need to just start implementing a mental health plan when you do purchase a gun. Assessing the mental status of the person purchasing the gun and evaluating the household, like meaning going into the household to assess how is this household living, what is the mentality of this household, because these kids are getting access to these guns and the parents are not aware, or they are aware. It's just our society has become, and I say toxic, in a way that this is the way of the world. You're not cool if you don't have a gun. You can buy a gun on the street. That's how it was in the 80s. There would be people that had trucks of guns and they would go into the inner cities and just hand them out like they were toys. So now our culture has drifted into a society now everyone has access to a gun. And I'm not a firm believer of guns. However, my parents did advise me to get one. Only because with presidency and the political things that are happening, they're at the end where you have to protect yourself. Mental health is on a rise, and you have people that are walking around with the right to shoot, the right to do whatever if they feel threatened by any means. And so my parents advised me, you need to protect yourself. But this is a society we're living in. You go to the store, I think it was, what is that store, Great Outdoors. He said that everybody's coming in, and I could have swore there was like 50 people at this counter purchasing firearms. Not one, not two. They're like on their 10th firearm. So I don't think that there is a fix at this point. I think America has allowed this because it's all about financial gain. And at the end, I think we're just in the remnants of this long process of gun violence, and now it's at a head.
Well, now let me hear from you, because I want everybody to chime in on this issue of gun violence and the recent shooting in the school that you have heard.
I think everybody should take a responsibility in that, not only just, the parents itself, accountability, like in reference to this, the systems that have PlayStation, all these video games. Because if you look at this generation, all these kids, even adults play video games. Like, when you look into that with all the gun violence that's put into that, you wonder how that correlates with the mental instability of these individuals that are carrying out these mass shootings, and how that correlates with that. And then as well as, the house structure as well. And then they should have, in reference to being able to purchase a gun, they should have, I think now they're waiting to pass a law where you have to at least wait, 48 to 72 hours before you actually get it, before you're able to obtain the gun. Or so that's pretty much it. So I don't know. It's crazy.
Yes. How about you?
Well, thank you. If you allow me, I'd like to just take a step back.
Sure.
Generational conflict, social media bullying, trauma. Gun violence is an expression of all this. gun violence is an extreme way of communicating your frustration, your anger, empowerment. You want to rise above bullying, you want to rise above conflict, trauma. A lot of people feel that's the way you express yourself. So without wanting to go into the politics of it, which is really making the problem more, what is the foundational problem here? It starts from the home, starts from the school, the neighborhood, and it's important we let everyone know that gun is not, we are told education is power. But now it's like gun is power. So how do we change that trend? A lot of education has to go into it. We have homes that kids cannot talk to their parents, but they want to talk. They are in school, they have no voice, they are shy to talk, but no one stops them when they carry the gun. So we have to give people self-confidence, self-worth, avenues to express themselves. Let them talk to people. Generational conflict, some talk to psychologists, therapists. Are they at the same level to be able to really get to the depth of the problem that individual is facing? So it's not just the buying of guns. It's not just like getting mental health stuff. With all those, it won't stop this. So we need to go to the nitty-gritty of this. Go down to our educational system. Look at the security in the schools. How are they coming together? Like just yesterday, Serbia, someone, a 14-year-old shot how many people in the school? Something was happening. Nobody noticed. And that was the expression of frustration. So how do we take care of all this? If we don't take care, gun violence is not going to stop in the nearest future. It's a bleak projection, but then that's what we're seeing every day.
You know, yeah, go ahead, please, Nahum.
So, sir, I would recommend, honestly, everybody go to ALG and take that public speaking class and bring your kid. You know, take that course. Learn to actually have a communication, that dialogue with your kid. But at the same time, though, with others surrounding adults to actually have that. And then actually taking the professor's class, you might be able to actually learn how to actually have a dialogue and, you know, be able to express your dreams and your thoughts to where that other person could understand, like you would say. So definitely appreciate you, Professor.
Giving shout out to our dear professor. So I would like to share this with you because for the longest time as a parent, when I take my kids to school, I always felt like, oh, they're safe. I have nothing to worry. And yesterday at 2:36 p.m., I got this message. CEC Inverness, this is where my daughter Farmer goes to school, is on a secure the perimeter due to a reported gunman in the area. This is me being at work, and I got this text. The minute I got this text, my wife got the text at the same time, and obviously, next thing you know, she called me on the phone. It was a crazy moment. Like I said, like, where, what, what's happening? And your reaction is, do I drive to the school? And the gunman is there. You're going to drive over there?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have a gun yourself.
Right. So, I mean, and obviously you're trying to call to talk to your daughter, and she cannot be, I mean.
It's crazy.
That short moment, I mean, I did not share it with the team because I was not prepared to deal with something like this. So my question to all of you as a parent, how is it, or how should it be every morning when we release our kids where they leave the house to go wherever they need to go? Should we feel safe? Should we worry? Should we have a message for them? Should we hug them and tell them, I love you? What is it? What should we do in this current situation that we are in? So, yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
In reference to that, when you got that text message, did you know the school's policy in reference to gun violence or anything like that?
I didn't know.
And how many of you guys, do you guys know anything about your kids' right? Do you see? So the lack of knowledge, I mean, I think right there, let alone self-explains on how, why we're victimizing ourselves into it when we actually have the knowledge. They have a policy and procedure in place, that could at least, helped you navigate on, okay, what route, where we're going to meet up, and all these items, or under subcategories.
Yeah, that's a lot of times does not work. Remember where is that state that a young guy went into a school and started
Memphis or
Texas?
is it,
There's too much.
yeah, and so those in answering Papa's question, like every day when my kids are, most times they don't know that I do this, but most times every day they leave home to go to school. In my heart, I always pray for them. I pray for them in my heart. I say, as you're going, I use the Holy Spirit to go with you because I'm not there. And just like it happened to you, we also get that text. Most times, my husband and I, we get that text like,
We had Denver DPD in our schools. We didn't have those type of issues. So when it happened, everybody, of course, was in shock. Of course, being in DPD or Denver Public Schools, there was no fear of the gun shooting in our schools. But since my kids have been in school, I've received a text message there was last year, right before the shutdown, I received that there was a gun brought into the school. I'm the type of parent that showed up at the school. I'm the type of parent that was at the door. You're gonna let me in. Find out where this gunman is. I'm not leaving. As long as I know my child is safe, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not gonna sit at home and read a text, because what they do, sometimes the Aurora Public Schools was delayed in sending the message out. I get to school, my daughter's like, Mom, we were on a lockdown. Why was I notified? So now I'm at the point where if I hear any little thing, I'm showing up at the school. I don't care, gun or no gun. I need to make sure my kid is safe. I'm not going to wait until somebody broadcasts that to me. I'm going to show up. I'm that parent, and that's the parents. We need to be aggressive about protecting our children. We can't sit back and allow the system or our school district to give us those guidelines. We're in war, whether we want to realize it or not. It's time out for being the passive parent. You have to be aggressive about protecting your children's mental and physical status until they're able to protect themselves.
I didn't think about that, but as you were saying that, it just came to me. There are so many trainings on active shooter situations. How many of us have put our kids through that? I believe they're on YouTube and stuff. We need to sit them down. They need education.
They're being taught this in schools.
What are they being taught? I mean, like the procedure?
Yes, active shooter.
Are they?
Like growing up, I was taught tornado drills. They're not taught tornado drills.
We need to re-emphasize
They're taught
that
active
at
shooter
home,
drills.
maybe, that they know we are concerned about them. I think maybe it's going to resonate in them more.
So let me ask this follow-up question now. You just told us we are at war.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have one simple question for each of you, and you just say yes or no. Should you own a gun?
Yes.
Patricia?
No.
Yes.
Okay. Another debate to come. So if you just tune in, you join us for the African Leadership Group Facebook Live put together by the Health and Wellness Committee, where we are having a conversation on mental health. As we are celebrating the month of May as mental health, we did cover a lot of things. We talk about generational conflict, we talk about cyberbullying, we talk about gun violence. Now we're going to summarize it and close it up with trauma. And I know we want to focus on this conversation mainly about the kids. How do we help them to deal with trauma? But let's start with us as a parent. You know, do we experience trauma? Do we deal with it? How do we know how we have it and all that? So I'm going to start with you.
Trauma. Well, I would say I really not experience it in my kids, because there's an open door policy in my home. Mostly, when we talk before it gets to that level, if they have issues in school, they talk to us. So I've not really had to go to that level of trauma that it's going to be disturbing for now.
Okay, how about you, Nahum?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually going through that right now. I'm, growing up here, being a diaspora and African American, growing up here, we've just grown raised to where you just put your feelings to the side, deal with the solution, find a solution, and then if you can manage to find a few minutes to cry about it, then hey, that's your due diligence to cry about it. And then you just keep on pushing and moving forward. And now, I guess when you have more time, you try to learn how to unpack that, and it's a difficult journey. It's a difficult journey. This definitely.
Well, look, I'm not an expert, but we just heard him say it. He doesn't want to lie. He's going through it right now. And I just don't want to leave that but I hope that, Abdul, whatever follow-up we can do, we will do that, because that's part of the thing. That's why we're having this conversation, right? So when we hear these things, we don't push it to the side. But yeah, so how about you, Patricia?
Just like my husband said, I have not really experienced trauma.
I think it's maybe a way of preventing as well as curing. It's good to have an outlet. If you have somewhere you can express it, it may not build up. And after building up again, and there's somewhere you have an outlet, it's a way of healing. So the outlet is very important. As I said, for my kids, for now, they feel they have an outlet. They can talk. This happened in school today. Daddy, you need to talk to my counselor. We are very good with the counselors. And so they know when they come home, there's no castigation. There's no stigma. What we do is, how do we handle this? And really, we're doing good about that. The confidence has been built over the years. So there is an outlet. And if you are in trauma, look for an outlet. Not violence, but someone you can talk to, who would understand. And
how about you, Vel?
I think there's levels to trauma.
yeah.
If I'm real with myself, I've experienced trauma when I was in elementary school with being bullied. Kids these days, I think each and every one of them have experienced trauma of some sort. It's the magnitude of trauma that really affects them. I tell my daughter and even my son, because they've had traumatic moments because I went through a divorce, right? That was traumatizing. I went through trauma with carrying 2 children and pregnancy and all that other stuff. So there is levels of trauma. How I processed that was through therapy and, of course, church, and having that spiritual grounding to understand, is this trauma here to destroy me, or is it there to build me? Right. And so that's how I speak to my children whenever they're faced with something that I can't even understand. And like, let's deal with this. Do you want to talk about it? And a lot of times, like no. But when they do get to the space where they're talking about it, that's when it's like, okay, if I can't handle their trauma, I need to let them see a therapist to help them unpack that trauma. But I think there's levels to trauma that we all experience.
Yeah, and I just want to add something, because as African immigrant, some of us, we left home because we were forced to leave. There was civil war. There was a lot of bad things that happened. And even though in our culture we don't call it trauma, right? In our culture it's just like
Life happens.
Right?
yes, we don't call it trauma. So, and you mentioned it, going through a divorce with your children, and sometimes, do you think there are some memories that will trigger memories of trauma? If so, do you have an example you want to share, Patricia?
None can. I can't readily think of anyone for now.
Okay. Now, let me come to you.
There could be a lot of things. For example, like love, like actually understanding and knowing what that is. Growing up, having an idea of my parents, the way they show love was the correct way. And now growing up, I'm like, oh man, that was a different time. You know what I mean? Their love was, different structure instead of where now with this timeline, like, it could be a different meaning. You know what I mean? So that trauma, especially with the cultural differences, like, oh man, like when you're with someone, you check the box, oh, I want this, but then I can't, but I don't like this. Oh, I like this because of my culture, and then, this is what I've seen with my family. Into a reality, like, oh wait, hey, especially being a diaspora person, it's different. It's different. So that could be trauma in its own.
So, how about you, Velva?
Yes, I experienced trauma when my son was 1 year old, and we were in a car accident, and he died in my arms. And so that was very traumatic. It sent me into anxiety attacks, panic attacks, but luckily they was able to bring him back. And after that, I always had a fear of him having a seizure. So when I thought he was having a seizure, I would go into panic attacks and anxiety. And I had, how I overcame that was through church, through prayer, and through really letting go and understanding that this is not my fight. I think that's what trauma is, that when we take on trauma and we hold on to trauma, we allow trauma to hold us back. And like I said, trauma is not meant to hinder us, but it's also meant to grow us, if we look at it that way.
So, I know you share that, your kids, you think like they're the outlet, there's an environment built into the house. And it got me to really question, because for me, if we look at this new environment, I grew up thinking that I came from a happy family, but later in my life, that when I realized that I dealt with trauma later. And I don't know if there's any mess, because most of the time we might feel everything is okay. Does it mean, is it for real okay?
You know what? Even I tell you, there are outlets, we talk. At the end of it all, I tell my kids, I know there's something you're not telling me. I don't know 100% about what's happening to you. The one thing I can assure you is, whenever you're ready to tell me anything, come. And my wife will recall, like 2 months ago, our first son called the two of us into the room and told us certain things. So when you let them know you're not going to be crucified, when you let them know that they're not going to be rejected, made to look like a criminal, they'll come to you. What he told us was not very palatable, really. But by the time we are done talking, praying, you see, his demeanor was different. You could see he let go a lot of things. So, as I said, it's important that outlet is there. It doesn't mean nothing is amiss. But at one point or the other, something is going to activate it and it's going to talk to you. They're watching you. They want to, it's going to be angry. It's going to condemn you. They're watching you. Give them an environment. They know when they come to you, they're going to come out better than they went in. When you do that, you've solved a huge problem in their lives. Keep the door open.
Very powerful. Now, as we are getting to the end of our conversation this time, I'm going to come back to each of you shortly, where I want you to really look at the camera and have whatever message you want to have, either that's the school district, the politician, the other parents, the kids. Tell them what you're thinking. Tell them how you're feeling. Tell them what your wish is. What do you want to see? But before we get to that, I want to let everybody know we're going to be tuning again Thursday, May 11, which is next week at 5 p.m. for part 3. I will be joining by now experts. Remember, the first part was the kids, the second part was the parents. And sitting here also having this conversation, I feel in some way, right? I feel there's part of the conversation, I felt excitement, but the part of the conversation where we were talking about gun and trauma, I felt defeated. And all of us, the energy change and everything. So, Nahum, I want to start with you. And whoever you want to have a message to, because the purpose of this conversation is to, as an organization, the African Leadership Group, we just want to plant the seed on whatever that could be making things better, right? So what message do you want to have for whoever you want to look at you and listen to you?
All right. Which camera am I looking at?
He got you. The guy is a Superman. Wherever you're looking, he will get you.
Well, the only thing I want to say, the most important thing is be involved. Being involved in your school, kids' activities, school board meetings. Be involved in everything. Communicate and be patient. Because with the generational changes that are coming and are happening, be mindful of the things that you say and do. So definitely be proactive, get in there, and make it a success.
Thank you so much. Patricia, I'll come to you, please.
Yeah. So this is to parents, just like Nahum said, be more involved in your kids' life, their activities, their school, everything that is going on around them. Be more involved. Because if you're not involved, outsiders will be involved in their lives. And then to the children, we want to tell you that as parents, we love you, we want the best for you. All you just have to do is trust us as parents, and we will not let you down. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Velver.
Ooh, great. Let's go. I feel like I'm on 9 News. Okay. So this is for the parents. I encourage you and I challenge you to be the louder voice in your child's life. I encourage you to get involved in the schools. I encourage you to be the voice to speak for them when they can't speak for themselves. That is in their education. That is what they're being taught. I think you need to be the advocate for what they're learning and be the advocate for protecting your children.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you. They said it all, but I'm going to say 2 more things. One, I'm going to talk to the school authorities. The teacher-student ratio, I think, is getting a bit larger by the day. And it's like the teachers are really not knowing who these kids are. So if it is possible, the student-teacher ratio should be made like, the teacher-children ratio, I think, should be smaller than it is today. And then secondly, to parents, learn what your kids are learning. If possible, be a step ahead of them in what they are learning. But by doing that, you will not be in the dark.
Thank you, and allow me to have a message here, and God knows that we don't want to be political here, but my message is starting with the president of this country, and you call yourself a senator, a congressman, representative, and all those people that are elected on behalf of the population of this country. just know that we are scared, we are frightened, we are lost, and Velva said it, we are at war. And I don't think that none of us like the feeling to wake up in the morning to feel like you are at war, especially you don't have weapon to fight with. You had no training to fight with. All of you were elected to do the right things on our behalf. So my message to you, however you're going to fix it, fix it. We thank everybody for joining us, and this was put together by the African Leadership Group, Health and Wellness, and we want to thank them under the leadership of Abdul and your team. And I think this is a great conversation, and next week we'll be joined by the expert. But parents, let's continue this work. This is just the beginning of it as we continue to celebrate May, but we want to continue to have this conversation after May until we get this right, to make sure that we feel safe and we live the life exactly how God intended us to live with. So thank you, and we'll be with you next week. I want to give a big shout out to our producer, Professor Majama. So we call him the senior citizen of the house. He's very old, so he's a baby boomer. A big thanks to Laurie Collier, helping setting up all these things. Lish, thank you. Uzi, we call him Uzi. Thank you so much for all the work that you are doing. And the newest member to the family that's behind the camera, Yusuf, thank you so much also for joining us. Until next time, we wish everybody a good night. Thank you.